is Caffeine and Coils, and I'm Deanna.
And I'm Jenny.
And we have a special guest with us today in our virtual studio. Steven, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Stephen Simmons. I'm a technical service manager here at Mingledorff in the Central Georgia and Central Alabama areas.
All right. So today, Steven's going to tell us, because he's so cool, calm, and collected, uh, some tips from his experiences in the field about how to de escalate customers.
All right. Thanks for joining us, Stephen.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Can you share a memorable experience where you successfully turned an angry customer into a satisfied one?
Yes, I actually have a really good example. We did, when I was working in a van for a contractor, we had maintenance on our church. And sometimes as a technician, things can get repetitive, especially in the shoulder seasons when you have to do cleanings. Uh, Especially when you get tied to a customer, you see the same equipment 2 times a year, and you know it's clean a lot of times when you get there, but you got to do it anyways. But we had this church, I can't disclose the name, but had about 10 systems. I was a low man on a totem pole, so I was sent around there to look at this equipment, and I was supposed to follow up with two senior techs, and well, one was a lead, but they were supposed to follow up behind me a couple hours later and help me finish by lunch. And when we went over there, or I went over there, I started working through the units. I was following protocol, cleaning the coils, checking the amps, checking the capacitors, checking connections, the whole 9 yards. And when the other two guys showed up, we kind of got through lunch and was going to take a late lunch. Um, I felt the peer pressure not to check the last couple units, as they didn't check anything because they was like, oh, this church, we've been doing the maintenance for 15 years. It's clean. I know it is. Everything's fine. And I felt the pressure that everything was cool. So I just signed off on the paperwork that everything was good. And that was like on a Tuesday. And this is getting into like late February, March area. We had a warm day. That unfortunately that Sunday I was on call, and when I showed up Sunday, I'm sorry, I skipped a part there. They called in for a no cool for the sanctuary on Sunday, and when I got there Sunday and looked at the unit, it was totally obvious what was wrong. The unit had about a third of the refrigerant in it that it needed to operate, and I fixed the issue, got the leak resolved, everything was a-okay. But but when I presented the bill to the lead deacon at the church, it was not okay because they did not accept that they'd been paying money for maintenance, and we came out and that my name was on it on Tuesday that everything was good. So how can it be broke and low on refrigerant, 60% low on refrigerant on Sunday? So they were not happy with that, and so they were very frustrated and wanted to move their business elsewhere. So kind of to remedy that, I just was honest about things can get hectic sometimes, and that we had multiple guys on the job, and that unit must have got overlooked. We didn't charge them a service call, and we gave them half off the refrigerant, and so that was kind of the deal. So no overtime charges, no service call, and then they got half off on the refrigerant. So either way, if it had been found on Tuesday, didn't charge them for the repair either. So that remedied that, and everyone felt that we got the right choices made.
Yeah, I think honesty in situations like that is always the best policy. It's like, karma. Karma comes back around, so you might as well
Mm-hmm.
just be honest, right?
So, what is your go to approach for calming down a frustrated customer when you're in the heat of the moment?
Well, I kind of wrap all this up into bigger picture. So you got to know your customers, and sometimes your frustrations coming from a known customer uh, are easier handled by, that you can cut them some discounts because they're loyal, and you can go that route. That's easy stuff. You know that you're going to make profit at the end of in the end of everything. When you take it on new customers, that's where things get crazy because you don't know them. You don't know if they're going to pay or if they're not going to pay. But when you got new customers, someone you've never touched base with before, like a cold customer coming in, if you don't know them, then you don't know what angles you can take. However, my approach has always been to start learning as soon as I get in the driveway. I always tell new guys that when you pull up in the driveway, you got to start looking at everything. Look what kind of car they drive, see how their grass is laid out. Is it got lines cut in the grass? They take pride in that. That's always been my approach, is to learn the customer. It hadn't steered me wrong, but just any little detail about the house. When you go in the house, or the old lady with, or elderly lady with all their grandkids' pictures in the hallways, and start asking them questions. And so I try to break down the walls. That's my approach, is breaking down those walls, because they don't know me, or they may. It just depends if it's a new customer or not. But they potentially don't know me or anything about me, and so they're going to build up a wall. It's a lot of controversy in the field that heat and air is a scam. So automatically they're thinking that they're going to get scammed. So I try to knock those walls down, and a lot of times, almost every time, when you go in and you start asking them questions about themselves, asking them questions and trust and listen to what they're saying, and don't talk over them. Uh, that just builds that trust. So that's what I do. Communication. Just talk to them. That's my approach. Because once they know me, then when they feel more friendly with me, and then they're less likely to jump because they think that they're getting hoodooed on pricing.
Yeah, I think that's a good approach because I know I mean, I don't love small talk as an introvert, but I do appreciate when someone's trying to get to know me a little bit more and I can tell like they're trying to relate to me. It does like give you more of a sense of trust with that person.
I agree with that. I think a lot of what you said kind of ties back to an episode that we did um, towards the beginning of when we kicked off the podcast that talked about customer service and how to connect with your customers and why it's important to like build their trust and stuff. So those are all really good points. I think as someone who's never actually worked in the field, those are things that I would have never thought about. Like he meant like we talked about not parking the van in the driveway so that the oil, if there's an oil leak, it doesn't get in their driveway and things like that. And those are just, you guys are really zoned in on how to build trust with customers early on in service calls. And I think that's really important. So, how do you maintain professionalism and find the balance between staying professional but still being empathetic with your customers?
Trying to stay professional and not get so personal. That's a hard one right there, because at every level, at every level, you sometimes you can get attacked. So when you come in a gate, you're almost always going to be age discriminated against. How long you been doing this? And so a lot of times you feel that pressure. So the mentality of someone, let's say 19, 20 years old, 21, 22, you know, they're still trying to memorize the terminology of the equipment, calling the compressor, not calling it a capacitor. And then you get derailed when someone is already dismissing your knowledge before you've even touched the equipment. How long you been doing this? You don't look like you're more than 12. And then that hinders. You take your emotions on your sleeves or on your shoulders, and uh, you get you get red faced, you get very angry, and then it makes you want to bark back. And that's something that you'll fight for a long time, and until you grow thicker skin. But I just try to stay focused on the issues at hand, and then anytime that they would come at me, I would always try to divert and take it back to them. I know that sounds crazy, but I always try to keep the homeowners talking. I try to keep them talking, because if they're talking, then they'll stop staring down at exactly everything that my fingers are touching, and then they'll usually look around and prop up against the air conditioner and just yap yap yap, talk talk talk. I mean, in a good way. I'm listening, but I get them talking. and then I can focus more on what I'm doing. But it's tough. That's a hard. Uh, that, there's no secret to keeping professionalism. That's just a tough battle that takes experience, truly. But just remember, at the end of the day, you're trying to get paid, and you're not going to get paid, and not going to get recommendations if you just snap on someone. Um, Homeowners, you just got to remember, if you're there for a no cooler, no heat, the homeowner's already in a bad place. Their house is hot. It's 85 degrees in their house, and they know, they already know that it's going to cost more than a few $100s. They already know. So they're already mad, they're already aggravated, and they think they're getting scammed. So you got to keep that in mind. So you got to go in knowing that they're already aggravated, and just tread lightly and be honest. And anything that they say, it doesn't matter what they say, they're just lashing out, and don't take anything personal.
So, how do you manage when customers are upset about things that are out of your control, like pricing or delays in equipment and parts, things like that?
I don't ever lie. Don't lie. Don't beat around the bush. Just tell them straightforward. If you know the part's going to be 3 weeks out, just tell them 3 weeks out. Don't tell them it's going to be a few days, and then call them back, or tell the office, hey, you need to call them back and tell them it's going to be 3 weeks. Just straight up tell them. Also, before you break bad news like that, uh, let's say a part is 3 weeks out, look at what the part is, and see if you can't find a third party. So for what anything, if you got if there's a third party solution, and I ain't trying to make a sales pitch here on third party parts, non OEM universal replacements. However, that is something that is becoming a lost art, is looking at universal replacement parts. And so you may have an ECM blower on the inside, and if it fails, it might be a week out. However, you can put a standard blower motor in there, let it run for a few days till the new one comes in. And that's becoming something that's not done. There's a lot of guys that break bad news and then don't make any temporary repairs, and it just makes everything escalate more. But sometimes you just got to break that news, and sometimes it's not good news. You know, if like the heart of the system, the compressor, if it were to die and you can't get it by, just be honest. Say, hey, the compressor's dead, and it's going to be a few days, or it's going to be a week, uh, 5 to 7 business days. So honesty is the best. That's the best policy. It's just being honest and upfront.
I agree with that because I don't know. I just, especially if I feel like someone's being honest with me. I mean, you alluded to it earlier when you said that people kind of feel like HVAC stuff is a scam because they're not familiar with it. You know, they don't know that the capacitor is bad or whatever the case may be. So they automatically feel like it's out of their wheelhouse. So if you're honest with them and you're saying, you know, it's going to be 3 weeks before we can get this, then they're not going to, you know, wind up finding out that your a few days is a lie and get more upset with you if you're trying to tell them that instead.
I know. I that like that's a pet peeve, and it just recently happened to me where we had contractors at our house, and they specialized in one portion of what they were fixing, and there was another like second step, and they just never did come out and say like, well, we don't really have contacts for that. They tried to show up and finish the job themselves, and I was like, no, no, you're just not getting paid for that. Like, you're
Mm-hmm.
not gonna just do slap some paint on the wall and call it done when you're not, you don't even have half the stuff you need. So I appreciate it when people are just honest up front with me, especially as a paying customer. So I know all of our customers feel the same way.
Yeah. What advice would you give to new technicians on keeping their cool when they're dealing with a difficult customer?
Keeping you cool. Just remember that they're human. Just remember that the customers are human. They're just like us. And like I was saying earlier, you know, they're already going to be in a rough place. They know that the financial burden is uh, unavoidable. if they have a major failure on their system. But that's the biggest thing. Just remember they're human, and they're gonna lash out at you, and just don't take anything personal. If they ask about your age, just let it roll off your shoulder. Just remember you're there to do a job, and just fix that air conditioner, and don't don't jump ahead. So one of the big things in heating and air, a lot of new guys, and I like to teach for new guys because a lot of you senior technicians, they feel like they've already learned it all and they're not listening. You know, so
Yeah.
and nobody's looking out for those guys coming into the field now. We have a huge trade work issue anyway. There's a huge thing going on now. You come in the gate, they're already questioning your age. You look like you're 12. How old are you? You just graduate. You just graduate. Are you just working this as a summer job? They already knock you down, and then you want to get one. You want to get one. You want to get ahead and say, "Oh, I bet I know what's wrong with it. It's probably the blower motor." And when you open your mouth and you pre-diagnose something before you should have, if you're right, yeah, you won that customer. I tell you, you won that customer. They're gonna say, "Man, you really know what you're doing." But let me tell you, if you're wrong and you got to backtrack and eat those words, what do you mean my compressor's dead? You know, you
Yeah.
said it was the blower motor. You told me it was going to be $250. I'm not paying $2,100 for a compressor. I'm paying $240 for that blower motor you said was bad. And so just don't go down that route, and just remember that they're human just like we are. So
Mm-hmm.
don't and that pre-diagnosing and it just opens a whole new area of issues, and that is something that's done by a lot of green technicians. But you got to listen to the customer. I guess that's the most important thing is listen to the customer. So
I like what you said too about not taking stuff personally because I mean that's like it's harder, it's easier to say than it is to do it, but I think that comes along with some of the experience is just know that some people are just gonna prejudge you based off of anything really. So that's good advice. Are there any specific phrases or techniques you found especially effective in de-escalating tense situations? Like, what do you typically like? What's your go-to?
you got to know who you're working for, and you got to know your customers. That's the main thing. So if you know you work for a company that does not give you any price breaks, and they don't allow it, they frown upon it, then you don't have that in your pocket to use. If you do, you can utilize it. You can say, I appreciate your business. We see in our records that you've called us in the past. We're going to give you a 15% off, and we're going to waive your service fee, your diagnostic fee, and things like that. And I'm not saying because um, you know some companies out there will jack the prices up and then go in and discount it, and that's not right. That's not honesty. And I I'm being sincere about that. If you give them a true price break, but go ahead and do it. If you see that they're a low income family, you see this little old lady that's living check to check, she's on oxygen or whatever, or he is on oxygen, doesn't matter. But go ahead and cut them a price break, if you can. If you don't work for a company that allows that, then it just puts you at more of a disadvantage. But I use that, but I try to, at that point, by the time we start talking about money, at that point, I'm usually already knocked down their walls, and we done started building a new foundation for communication between me and the customer. So you you can't wait till it's time for payment to start talking, because at that point they still don't know you. So you got to start at the beginning of the service call. For example, like you got plants right there, Jeannie. You got those plants. So if I walked in the house, I say, "Oh, you got a green thumb? So what's the air conditioner doing?" And as soon as they get done, just say, "All right, well, I'm going to check this out. is anything particularly about those plants that you like, or were those gifts? And you start talking. Oh yeah, well my husband got me that for Valentine's Day, and then you just start rolling. And then if they're that type that's going to walk with you, then they'll talk that all the way to the air conditioner, and they'll talk, and say,
Mm-hmm.
well, how often do you have to water that plant? Is that special plant? Or like Deanna, just say, how many cats you got? Oh, what kind of cat is that? And then as you're talking, then I'm focused on diagnosing it. All right, why isn't the contactor pulling in? Let me get my meter. Blah, 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 blah.
I feel like that's a skill that takes a little while to get good
It
at.
does.
Because you
It
got to
does.
be thinking through diagnosing the problem as well as holding a conversation, which isn't always easy.
Well, I think I'm probably all anyone who comes to my house, I'm probably their dream because I'm like, do your thing and holler at me when you need me, when you're ready for me to pay for whatever you're doing because
You
I don't
probably
want
are
to
the dream
I don't want
customer.
to stand over you. I don't want us to awkwardly stand here while you're doing your job and
I'm the nightmare customer because I'm going to stand there and I want to know about your mom and them and how your cousin lost her kids and
yeah.
all that. I'm just kidding.
So, what do you think is the best way for technicians to proactively communicate to prevent frustration before it escalates?
Oh well, that's the same thing. You got to start when you get there. You got to start building a relationship with the customer as soon as you get there. Walking
Mm-hmm.
in the door, uh, write down. It's the small things, and staying strictly honest. You know, once you listen to them, write down their. If you're going to change their temperatures, write down what they were. Take a picture of the thermostat. That way, when it's all said and done, you can tell them for a fact, hey, I put your thermostat back where it was at when we got here, and you didn't leave it. That's something that happens with a lot of green techs. They'll run the thermostat all the way down to like 65 to get the unit to turn on, and then they'll leave it there. And they'll be signed the invoice, got paid, and down the road, and then Granny Smith's freezing her butt off in the middle of the night. So really, you got to build a relationship. And I know you may not be there but 45 minutes to an hour, but you got to have that relationship, and you got to build it on trust and honesty. You got to build it on truth.
For sure. Have you ever been caught between a frustrated customer and a company policy you can't change?
Oh yeah.
And if so, okay, how do you navigate that?
Sometimes you can't. Sometimes there. I would love to come on this podcast and just say that it's all rainbows and butterflies, but there are some companies out there that are bad, and I can't name names, and I mean I've worked for one or two in the past, and they don't give you any price breaks. They micromanage everything that that technicians do. They don't let you have idle time in the truck. You're not allowed to crank the truck until you're leaving. You need to cool down because you just came out of a 140-degree attic. That used to be a problem. I used to sweat. It sweats off here, and the invoices were white, and I'd sweat all over the invoice. And then they get mad about that. Then it's unprofessional. We walk in with a wet invoice, and if they don't, if I used to get caught a lot with that when I didn't think pricing was fair, and I tried one time. I called, like, "Is there any way we can lower the price on this repair?" They, no. They either pay it or you can leave, and that becomes a tough spot. So I just found somewhere better to work. I wish there was an easy answer, but if you work for a company that doesn't have good policies and you're not jiving with the policies, then it's not a good work environment for yourself.
No, and I think that's the best way to change it though,
Yeah.
Yeah.
to change those types of policies and change those types of companies because if you can't get good people to work for you, then maybe you need to look at your policies and why people are leaving. What do you think is some of the most common missteps that technicians make when they're trying to handle a upset customer?
Getting back,
Oh, yeah.
getting back. They say something wrong to you, and you snap back
Mm-hmm.
and say something back to them. It's not worth it. Just get your money, fix the air conditioner, get your money, and move on to the next one.
That's all. That's only going to continue to escalate the situation if you
Yep.
snap back. No one's ever like, "Oh, you're right." They're just gonna keep arguing, and it's just gonna compound on each other.
Yeah, that's exactly
That one
right.
must be hard though. I feel like that one would be like hard. I don't know, especially when you probably deal with conflict more than just any old, any average job. So it's probably difficult.
All right, so I have a fun game for you guys. Now this is gonna be easier probably for Steven, but I don't know. Jenny's pretty good, so we'll see.
Oh no, I'm scared.
All right, so this is basically like I'm going to give you an HVAC acronym and you have to tell me if it's real or fake.
Okay, so we both have to give our answer and then you're going to tell us the correct answer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to start off with an easy one. CFM.
Real.
Steven, you know that's
Oh,
real,
yeah,
don't you?
that's real. Yeah, that's real.
That's right. It's cubic feet per minute. Okay, what about VAV? Is that real or fake?
I'm going to say fake.
That's real.
Oh no! What does it stand for? Why
Variable
don't
air
I recognize
volume.
that? What?
Variable air volume.
Oh,
Dampers.
that one must be really. Is that one technical? Like really technical?
It's just the name of a damper control, basically,
Oh, okay.
for
Dang.
commercial use.
What about RHC?
That one sounds real to me.
You think it's real, Steven? Or
Nah,
fake?
that's fake.
Residential humidity control, is that real?
I ain't never heard of that.
No, it's it's not.
Oh, it's
It's
not.
fake.
Oh my gosh. Listen, I feel like that could be real though.
Stretching on that one.
I know.
Stretching on that one there.
RTU.
Okay, that one's real. Rooftop unit.
Mm-hmm.
Are you sure?
Yes. That's my final answer, Bob. Wait,
EE, EER.
that one's real.
I'm gonna say it's real.
Steven probably knows these. Like,
Yeah, this is
I
like
couldn't.
really
I probably
this
couldn't
is
trick
hard for
him.
me.
What about BRT? I'll tell you, it's balanced return temperature. Do you think that's real?
Balance return temperature.
Fake.
That's
What do you
fake.
think, Jenny?
That was hard. But it sounded
It is
really fake, so fake.
I need to be asking you. I need to be asking y'all.
Yeah, you should be.
You do. Yeah, we should have done it that way.
You should have done it.
Yeah,
Pop
we'll
quiz,
do that in
yeah.
the future. Have the expert ask us, because I definitely like some of these fake ones that Chat GPT came up with are actually sound pretty real.
Yeah, they do. Why don't you on the next few podcasts have the guests bring the questionnaire?
You're right. We did that with Michelle.
I was gonna
Did
say
you?
we did do that one episode. Yeah, that one was fun.
I don't think her episode has. No, it did air. It did air a couple weeks ago, actually.
Yeah.
All right, let's do a couple more. IHP.
That one sounds like an IT term.
What do they call it? IHP.
Integrated
Sure.
heat performance.
Nah, that's fake.
Yeah, I
That's
think that
fake.
one's fake too. Yeah.
All right,
That's
let's
fake
do
news.
one more. HSPF.
That one's real.
That's real.
Heating seasonal performance factor.
I feel like we talked about that one on the episode with Howie. That's how I remember that one.
Maybe, yeah.
Because that one was like, when he said that, I was like, I need to look up what that means. Because I remember thinking, like, wow, I'm not exactly
Okay,
sure
here's some more of the fake ones. I just want to say these for fun. DAP, dynamic air pressure.
Ooh, that's a good fake one there.
LSE, load system efficiency.
That one's not terrible.
MAC, mechanical airflow control. That sounds real. That sounds like something we'd sell.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's see, I already did that one. VTR, ventilation transfer rate. PSC, pressure system calibration.
PSC is real.
Is it?
Yeah, it don't stand for that. It stands for permanent split capacitor. That's a
Oh.
column letter type of
Oh,
Okay.
wow. Look at that. ChatGPT, not as smart as we think.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
need
it's
to
bragging.
run these through our human chat GPT over here. RXT, refrigerant exchange threshold. Really like
All
that?
right, Deanna, TXV, real or fake?
That is real. I just saw my real list, but that one was too
That was too easy.
obvious.
That was on when we took our EPA course. I was like,
Yeah, that and VRF.
yeah, VRF would have been an easy one too.
That was too easy because obviously we all know that.
What is the MAT?
MAT? I don't know. What is it?
Mixed air temp.
Oh, yeah. That sounds right.
Yeah, I didn't know that one. My bad.
He's like, I'm just kidding. That was fake.
Yeah, fake.
That's really funny.
All right. Well, that's all we have for you today. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe.